multiplying and dividing rational numbers. Go ahead and grab out your little foldable if you want. Here we go. First thing you need to remember is that when we multiply and divide rational numbers, we're going to use the integer rules, okay? So remember today in class we talked about the negative times a negative being a positive, or a positive times a positive being a positive. If the signs are the same and you're multiplying two numbers, your answers will be positive. If you're multiplying or dividing two numbers and the signs are different, your answer will be negative. If the signs are different, your answer will be negative. We also talked about how we could just count the number of negatives. We could count the number of negatives and determine the sign. I know that if I have an even number of negatives, my solution will be positive. If I have an odd number of negatives, my solution will be negative. If you look at the first example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. Well, 4 is even, and that means my answer needs to be positive. 3 times 4 is 12, times 5 is 60, times 1 is 60, times 2 is 120. So my final answer is going to be a positive 120. Notice that the numbers are exactly the same, except I snuck in a negative here. I changed the sign. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 negatives. 5 is odd. That means that my solution is going to be negative. Now the numbers didn't change, so the product is going to be the same. It's still going to multiply out to be 120, but it's going to be a negative 120. So use that rule of counting the negatives. Count the negatives. All right, your notes give you some steps for multiplying. So we're going to multiply some fractions first. Your step number 1 says to make sure both fractions are written as fractions. This is a whole number. I need to rewrite it as a fraction. Negative 7 over 1 times 4/5. Step number 2 says to multiply straight across. Multiply straight across. Well, 7 times 4 is 28. 1 times 5 is 5. Step number 3 says to reduce if possible. I cannot reduce. Step number 4 says determine the sign. I have 1 negative. 1 negative is odd. 1 is odd, so my solution is going to be negative. Or I can remember the little symbol here. If I want a quick cheat, know that a negative times a positive is a negative, okay? For you to remember the rule of counting the number of negatives. Number 2, I have a negative 4/12 times a negative 6/7. Well, let's see, I have two negatives, so I know that my final answer is going to be positive. 4 times 6 is 24. 12 times 7 is 84. But I can reduce these if I divide by 2. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 84 divided by 2 is 42. Then I can divide by, let's see, 3. 4 plus 2. I can divide both of these by 3 because they're both divisible by 3. 4 plus 2 is 6, which is divisible by 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. Remember to look at those divisibility rules at the top right of the classroom. If I divide by 3, 12 divided by 3 equals 4. 42 divided by 3 equals 14. And I can reduce this one more time. Both of these are even. Divide by 2 equals 2 over 7. 2 over 7. A negative times a negative is a positive. So my final answer is 2/7. 2/7. Let's look at number 3. Number 3, these steps are actually for number 4. I'll show it in a second. Number 3, again, same rules as we used for fractions. Write both of them as fractions. Well, that is not a fraction. That's a mixed number. I have to turn it into a fraction. 4 times 8 is 32, 33, 34, 35. I have 35 fourths times a negative 5 eighths. When I multiply straight across, 35 times 5 is negative 175. 4 times 8 is 32. That's my final answer. That is my final answer. Number 4, I'm going to try and show the steps as well as the problem. Number 4. So the first thing I need to do is ignore the decimals and multiply as normal. So I have 65 times 45. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry my 2. 5 times 6 is 30. Plus 2 is 32. Drop a 0. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry my 2. 4 times 6 is 24. 25, 26. And then I'm going to add 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 0 is 2. 6 plus 3 is 9. Bring down my 2. But step number 3 says to count the number of places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 decimal places to the right. That means I need to have 4 decimal places in my answer. Place the decimal. We're going to give it a leading 0. Determine the sign. I have 1 negative. 1 is odd, so my answer is going to be negative. My answer is a negative 0.2925. Don't even think about grabbing a calculator. You've got one sitting right on top of your shoulders. It's way better than the ones in the classroom. Number 5, let's see. We're dividing fractions. And I know that the rule for dividing is to multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply by the reciprocal. You guys remember it as keep, change, flip. All right? So I'm going to multiply straight across, but remember that we talked about today in class how you can cross-reduce. 7 will go into itself 1 time, 7 will go into 14 2 times, 9 times 1 is 9, 2 times 5 is 10. I had a positive divided by a negative, which means my answer is going to be negative. Remember, if you don't like cross-reducing, don't cross-reduce. Just multiply straight across. 9 times 7 is 63. 14 times 5 is 70. And then here in this instance, we have to divide everything. It can be reduced. We can divide by 7. I get 9 over 10. Same thing. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So it doesn't matter if you cross-reduce in the beginning or reduce at the very end. You're still going to get the same results. All right, number 6. Oh my gosh, I can't divide these fractions because my first one isn't a fraction. It's a mixed number. I have to fix that. All right, 4 times 5 is 20 plus 2 is 22. I have a negative 22 fifths. Divided by a negative 11 fifteenths. Well, I need to remember that we don't divide fractions. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. And I'm going to go ahead and cross-reduce. 11 will go into itself 1 time. 11 will go into 22 2 times. 5 will go into itself 1 time. 5 will go into 15 3 times. 2 times 3 equals 6. 1 times 1 is 1. A negative times a negative is a positive, or I have 2 negatives, the same sign. My final answer is just the whole number 6. I think we have some decimals next. All right, decimals. Remember that the first number number goes into the house or in the box. Cowboy rides the horse, right? First number inside the box. The second number outside the box. We have to turn the divisor into a whole number. Meaning I've got to make this guy right here a whole number. And the only way to do it is by moving the decimal over one place. When I move this over one place, whatever I do on the inside or on the outside, I have to do to the inside. So I have to move the inside decimal over once. And then I want you to make sure you move it upstairs because otherwise you're going to forget. I promise. 8 times what equals 56? 8 times 7 equals 56. 56 minus 56 is 0. Bring down a 2. Does the number 8 go into 2? It does not. Put a 0 there. Drop 1. You're going to have to add a 0. 8 will go into 20 2 times with the number 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Let's bring down another 0. Whoops, put it right here. Baby eraser. Okay. So how many times does 8 go into 40? 8 goes into 45 times. I have a negative divided by a negative, or 2 negatives, even number of negatives. My final answer, 7.025. Let's try that again. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. Negative 7/9 divided by 5/3. I have negative 7/9 times 3/5. Let's cross reduce. 3 will go into itself 1 time. 3 will go into 9 3 times. 7 times 1 is 7. 3 times 5 is 15. I have 1 negative. That's an odd number of negatives. That means my answer is going to be negative. Okay. Last one. Number 9. Oh my goodness. Dividing fractions. Well, this looks like a hideous fraction, but you have to remember what this means. This bar right there means divide. So I could rewrite this problem as 2 4/5 divided by 7/5. So I have to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction first. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. So I have 14/5 times 5/7. Cross reduce. 5 will go into itself 1 time, 5 will go into itself 1 time, 7 will go into itself 1 time, and 7 will go into 14 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. I have a positive divided by a positive, which is a positive. All right? Okay, I hope that you have your notes filled out because I'm going to check them on Friday. I'm checking your notes. Following along on the video and filling out your notes is worth 5 points. So I'm checking that on Friday. The next thing that you're going to do is take a 5-question quiz. I'm asking you about the rules, and then you have 7-question assignment. Please, please, please make sure that you behave yourself for the sub and work diligently. Get your work done. Be quiet. I do not care if you listen to earbuds, music. I told the sub that. Just please make sure that you're on your best behavior.